Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Hope everybody is well. Hope you've all had a very nice weekend. I hope for those of you, I saw Jill was in the chat there, and I know Tiberius was as well. I saw the floods in Edinburgh. I hope you two are nice and safe there. And those of you that are experiencing extreme heat, I think we're getting there. I'm sort of we'll get the plague of locusts next week, I think. How is everybody anyway? What are you up to? What are you doing at night? Are you just chilling out? Are you painting? Are you doing a bit of building? I saw some things in the chat there. VJ saying he's going to build some Veerman and Forge Fathers. I think Radek is finishing up his watches for Wild West Exodus, and he's got a real game on a real table this week. I think I saw Roberts basing some bolt action paratroopers. And I'm sure I just saw somebody, there it was, Deep Reg, building an Airfix model of a Centurion tank. Well, so some of you have got plenty of hobby on the go this evening. And we'll say hello to those of you that have joined the chat nice and early. Tonight's topic, basically, I think people are kind of getting the wrong end of the stick from this one. And I don't know why. Maybe it's my fault, maybe it's not. But I think people seem to be thinking that I'm suddenly going to start kind of like being all negative and bashing GW. I never do that. I don't know why people think I would suddenly kind of change my tune. However, tonight's topic is based around a kind of... I want to talk about game mechanics. There are so many exciting game mechanics out there now, that are among a million different games. And I want to talk about all of the different game mechanics, the ones that I enjoy from different games. And to kind of frame that with a bit of a topic that would spark some discussion and get people chatting, I've kind of said our Games Workshop's mechanic. Oh, sorry, I'll start again. Our Warhammer's game mechanics kind of a bit sort of stuck in the past. And I kind of phrased that in the Facebook group with basically like, all Warhammer games, all their rules, all their mechanics, are they like innovating, or are they kind of stuck like sort of in sort of rules of the past? And that doesn't mean that I'm saying that these are bad games. Just because something has older style rules does not instantly a bad game make. I'm not really sure why people are kind of thinking that this is a bit negative, because it's not like I'm kind of saying the game is rubbish, why do people play it, or the rules are old, therefore it's a bad game. I kind of feel like we got off on the wrong foot a little bit, but I'll explain all that in much more detail when we get onto the topic. So we had Tolmod Greybeard in nice and early. Hello to you. Ed Handley as well. I think Ian was in earlier as well, but it's wiped off on this chat here. Ed Handley was in. He's got his D&D tonight, so he's going to catch up on the rerun. We also had Blizzards in nice and early. Hello to you, sir. We also had Jill Monroe, as I was saying there as well. Jill, I hope everything is nice and safe up in Scotland for you. I think I'm right in seeing you're kind of Edinburgh way. Ortega, hello mate, in the rerun for you as well, mate. Ice Moon is in as well. We've got, as he scrolls down reading everybody's chat, loads of chat there going on between you lot. We then had Deep Red come in, who I mentioned as well. Nice to see you. He says, I don't play any GW games, so I haven't a clue, but I'm intrigued all the same. Yeah, like I said, I'm just kind of... I'll be talking about sort of the Warhammer games and Games Workshop games in general. But I want to focus more upon game mechanics and what I think are classed as kind of innovative ones that maybe we don't see quite so often, and why don't we see them? Tasty Brain Drain, hello to you. Christian Rees, good evening, mate. Hope you're well as well. Tiberius, I say as well, isn't it? Nice to see you, sir. And then I'm scrolling down. Hello, Robert Zung. Hello, Glenn Griffin. Radixon as well. Nice to see you. John Estel. Good evening, sir. Jacob's in. VJ, good morning to you. My friend from down under there. Mark Coxey, good evening to you. Bobby Clark's in. Hobby Hero, he said, I demoed AOS 3. Not a fan of the one army at a time system. One. I think you mean kind of I go, you go. We'll come on to that stuff later. A lot of people seem to have that kind of is a bit of a negative about GW games, but I'm not convinced it's that bad in the grand scheme of things. Kodos, good evening to you, mate. Of course, it jumps up my screen there just as I scroll down. We'll get it back. Where are we up to? There we are. Kodos, I said hello to you. Hello, Andrew Cook. Says good morning from tomorrow. Hello, future boy. Arnold the Gans is in as well. Ian is printing and preparing one-page rules new Mummy King chariots. Nice one. Arnold's playing with his Dominion box. Fiji says extreme heat in the UK. No, mate, not in the UK. I mean anybody overseas. I think in the US they're having some extreme heat. I didn't mean the UK, folks. It's absolutely lashing it down here. Frantic, good evening to you. Tony Howell, how's you doing, my friend? Palmsy's in as well, said it's hot in Spain. Coda saying no problem with bashing GW. Do a lot of deserve it. I'll never bash GW for bashing's sake. I might be critical of some things they do. I might praise them for some things they do. But in the grand scheme of things, I want them to do well. They're the biggest hobby company. If they do well, everybody else seems to do well off the back of it. It's good for the industry. It's good for the hobby. So I'm never going to just kind of slate them for no reason. If I'm going to be annoyed about it, there'll be a kind of a reason behind it. Yeah, VJ saying being objective about something doesn't mean bashing them. 100%. Hobby Hero saying he likes Kill Team the most. Lots of alternative activations. We might touch on Kill Team tonight because I'm pretty sure we're going to see Kill Team 2 or Kill Team 2.0 announced very soon. I've heard a few rumours about it from an insider, so I might be able to share some of that later on. Stu McMurtry, good evening to you, sir. Arnold DeGan says, stuck in the past reads as outdated. They can still be outdated and still be good rules, mate. Like, I think somebody said in a chat somewhere, like chess is an old rule set, but it doesn't make it a bad game. Think about it as in, think of it as a classic car. Classic cars have a completely different engine, if you like. They're built from old technology, but they're still a car. People still enjoy them. They're very valuable to people. People enjoy older technology. It doesn't make it a bad car. It suddenly doesn't mean it a car that doesn't work. It just means that things have moved on. There's newer technology. There's things that make things more efficient, if you like. So yeah, just because it's stuck in the past, it might give a negative connotation, but it's there for attention, really. It's to get people to come in and kind of see this type of stuff. But yeah, there's no negativity in this. Small, good evening to you. Marcus is saying he's there. He's driving, so he'll just be listening. Wayne Hayward says, long-time viewer, glad to be able to watch the stream. Nice to see you, Wayne. Thank you for joining us tonight. Warwick City came to lurk and chew on bubblegum. I'm all out of gum. Yeah, Jill saying the quick swim to work was refreshing. Joel Wrigley, hello to you as well. He's saying he agrees with VJ. People seem to think some things are untouchable and get hyper defensive about it. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. I think just debate in general these days seems to be a bit of a lost art. I think instantly, as soon as somebody doesn't agree with somebody, everybody throws their toys out the pram, and it's kind of handbags at 10 paces. I think we seem to have lost the art of discussion and debate these days. Rob Sinis loves Warcry mechanics. No doubt we'll talk about that as well. Mountain Gremlin Games, hello to you. Hello to Tony Booth Leiden as well. Just scrolling down here. Hope Lives, hello to you as well. Busey's in as well from Different Gear TV there. Ian says, I miss CRT's combat resolution tables. I thought you were going to mean like cathode ray tubes, like old TVs there, mate. Tiberius is saying he's half asleep. It's not looking promising. You always fall asleep, mate. I'm just there to soothe you off to sleep. Have a nice sleep, mate. If you don't make it past the first 10 minutes, have a nice sleep. Sweet dreams. Connor, good evening to you as well. Andy Smith, hello from the Smiths, he says. Nice to see you. And Keely Anderson says, I Go You Go works when it's not as granular as Warhammer. Had my first game of Kings of War the day and it's fine there. I will touch on that at some point because that's one of the reasons I don't think I Go You Go is the problem. I think people think it is, but I don't think that's the problem. I think it's how you integrate it into a game. It works with some and maybe less so with others. So, got kind of caught up with the chat there a little bit. And Kaylee saying, suppose it's good. I enjoy it after painting 5,000 points on Night Stalkers. Commitment. That's right, Kaylee. Commitment to the cause there. So we might as well start. I might as well start with the GW stuff. I'm not going to kind of do this as a clips video. The main kind of topic I want to talk about is like sort of interesting, innovative, exciting game mechanics that I think have kind of come along as the years have gone on and as games developers have developed, and as I think things like kind of the internet and stuff have made it more accessible to spread kind of rules around and get people to play.
Is there something else I can help with?
No, there isn't. I just recorded about 10 minutes of my chat there, my watch. In fact, let me take it off. Yeah, I think it's kind of maybe even the internet, people kind of doing homebrew stuff, being able to share it a bit wider than just a couple of friends. I think it's been a big thing. Tasty Brain Drain Scene, I couldn't agree with you more about debate and discussion. It's definitely not. That seems to be going the way of the dodo. 100%, mate. And Paul's saying, I go, you go is my issue with AOS and 40k. I don't think that means they're stuck in the past. I just don't like them. Well, I'm going to explain now what I mean about stuck in the past and stuff like that. And I'm not even saying they are. I'm asking the question, are they? So, yeah. And Walter Black is in as well. So, yeah, so Games Workshop, essentially, what I'm talking about, when I'm talking about their Warhammer games, I'm really talking about Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k. We'll come on to some of the kind of the boxed games around that, or the specialist games as they used to be called. I think they're just called box games now, to be fair. Things like Necromunda, Blood Bowl, Warcry, Adeptus Titanicus, even though get Imperialis. I don't think I've missed anything specific there. But essentially, when it comes to 40k, and to a large extent as well, AOS, Games Workshop haven't needed to change their rules. They have a huge audience. I mean, they're by far the most popular games out there. Definitely 40k, AOS as well, I would imagine. And people expect the game to pretty much stay the same. People who have played for years, they want 40k to feel like 40k. People who enjoy AOS want AOS to feel like AOS. And I'm sure it was the same back in the day with Warhammer Fantasy as well. So it's a massive risk for Games Workshop to try and innovate for the sake of innovation, just because there's some really cool mechanics out there. Like, cool mechanics do not make a good game necessarily. They can streamline a game, they can make a game more fun, they can kind of they can make a game more interesting, they can make a game stand out, but they don't necessarily make it a better game. They don't necessarily improve a game as such. And what I was saying there about it's a huge risk to try and just do something for the sake of it. Like, you've just got to look at Warhammer Fantasy kind of being torched, for want of a better word, being set fire to, and Age of Sigmar coming in to basically pick up the fantasy mantle. And that just as an example about change and what happens when you try to make too big a change. So that I don't really expect Games Workshop to massively innovate when it comes to these games. They've got a legacy to their games, really. I mean, their games are essentially, I would say, they're updated rather than innovated. And for example, things like older codexes or older battle tomes, they need to be usable when they update the game, until, of course, they renew it. They bring out a newer version, and that becomes the update. But on that kind of crossover point between editions, we talk about AOS 3, the Dominion box has just come out this last weekend. All of those battle tomes released prior to the weekend all had to be usable in this AOS version 3. So there's no way they were going to massively turn the game upside down, if you like. So this again is another way it limits how much they can change. Even if they wanted to change, it's a little bit of a kind of an anchor that basically sort of stops them changing too much. I think the biggest change I think I saw was when they went from 7th to 8th edition on 40k, and they brought out all those indexes at the start of 8th edition, which essentially basically killed off all of the old codexes and said, right, we're starting again, really. And even then, that's the biggest change I've seen in 40k. Even then, it wasn't a massive leap from where the old game was. There's always rules that disappear and rules that get added and that kind of stuff. But it is essentially still kind of 40k at its heart. So the main changes really come with like each codex or each edition like changing, and they tend to come from adding rules rather than innovating game mechanics. So the core kind of structure of the game, the core game engine, never really changes that much. Things like adding monsters into the game, as they've done with AOS, endless spells or advanced terrain rules that they did recently with 40k and now with AOS as well. These basically add onto that core engine, and they might make the game feel a little bit different, but they don't necessarily make it feel more innovative, if you like. The core rule of basically rolling to hit, rolling to wound, rolling to save, if you like, are all just still there. Things like sort of strength versus toughness, it's not really going to go anywhere soon. And I think the big one is it was highlighted in our Facebook group, and it's been highlighted tonight, is that I go, you go, if you like, that kind of I activate all of my models and then you activate all of your models. And as I said just kind of briefly there before, I don't necessarily think as a game mechanic it's not necessarily inherently bad. It works very well for Kings of War. I think it's more to do with, it depends how balanced your game is. It depends what army lists people are picking. If certain builds will basically really sort of be powerful on that first turn, if you like, and will be detrimental to their opponent. So I think there's more in how the game around that is structured, as opposed to like just I go, you go is inherently bad, if you like. There's plenty of games that use it. Things like Infinity uses it, I go, you go, I activate all of my models, you activate all of yours. However, there's interactions in the middle of that basically stop that being this kind of overpowered mechanic. Yeah, and if you look at things like the double turn in AOS as well, like folks feel really strongly about that too. So the core of the game, as I said before, is still really based on the original games. There have been changes since Rogue Trader, don't get me wrong, but the core ethos of the game, if you like, is still very much kind of old Warhammer 40k. And I think even though some things have been streamlined and some things have been there to make things more accessible to wider audiences, there's times when where they introduced templates, they took templates away, that kind of stuff. It's largely the same game with tweaks. And I would say also that 40k and AOS as rule sets now probably feel closer to each other than they ever have. It almost seems to be heading to this. The choice is, do you want to play a sci-fi or do you want to play a fantasy, as opposed to, do you want to play a 40k or do you want to play AOS? They're not exact replicas of each other, if you like, but there's a lot of crossover now. The games feel more similar rules-wise than I think they ever have. I also think Games Workshop have obviously released a lot of older games. They've brought them back, so things like Necromunda and Blood Bowl, they kind of add to that library of games that are based upon older mechanics, if you like, or older designs. And again, as I said before, it doesn't make them bad games. Thousands of people play these games. Thousands of people love these games. It does not make them bad. However, they didn't, when they re-released Blood Bowl, there was no major kind of like sort of revamp of the rules. When they re-released Necromunda, there was no real major revamp of the rules. And a lot of that is based upon, those games are based very much in kind of nostalgia, and people want them to feel how they felt before. Now they have tried they have tried to innovate quite heavily in other places. Some of the kind of their box games, things like Warcry and Underworlds, I think are prime examples where Games Workshop have innovated. Underworlds doesn't feel like any other game they've ever made. I think the fact that Warcry has quite a lot of innovative things in that game that you don't really see in any other GW games, and a lot of them you didn't really see in other games either. And I'll come on to some of those later on in the chat tonight. But Games Workshop can innovate. I think given the design space, if you're coming out with something really new, I think it's kind of its free reign. They can do a good job. But I think it's the amount of risk with those kind of bigger mainstream games that keeps those games quite heavily sort of locked into an older game style, if you like. And I have to stress, it doesn't make it a bad game. It's not really innovated that much. It's been built upon the same core engine, if you like. Yeah, as I said before, it doesn't make these games bad. Thousands of people enjoy them every day, but it can make them maybe feel a little bit stagnant at times. I don't think there's a huge kind of leap forward. I think it's one of the reasons people feel a little bit begrudged, like paying for a new edition, paying for new rules, paying for new codexes. They're not massive kind of step forwards, if you like. It's just another way to generate some money. And really, other companies don't really have the pulling power that Games Workshop have. So they need to stand out by sort of having something that makes them different from the Games Workshop games. It might be they have tighter rule set for competitive play. Some games really heavily lean into that competitive market. It might be that they've got really kind of innovative mechanics, something that is really unusual, really different. Again, we'll come on to those later. And it might be that they play faster, or they have more accessible, kind of more streamlined rules. And really, whatever these companies do to try and kind of to stand out, really what it's done is it's pushed the miniature gaming hobby forward. And things like Kickstarter have allowed these companies to have these ideas and get their stuff onto the market. And that in turn has really put pressure onto Games Workshop to up their game a bit. However, I would say that they've responded by re-releasing some older stuff, and they've responded with the sheer volume of stuff that they put out into the market now as opposed to kind of doing anything different with their games for all the reasons I've already mentioned. And I think the miniature quality for Games Workshop is a huge thing, basically. It's always going to keep people buying into Games Workshop stuff. The depth of the lore and the background is always going to keep people engaged. And I think really the rules are kind of are just the rules. It's almost in the past they were almost a byproduct. I think that they're paying more attention to them these days, and certainly engaging more with the competitive crowd. But I do wonder whether the vast majority of Games Workshop customers don't really play their games, so maybe they don't focus that heavily on changing them. So are they, to kind of sum it up really, are they stuck in the past? No, not really. I don't think they are stuck in the past. I think they do some really good stuff. I think their main games are based upon older, tried and tested games mechanics that the people who play them love. And I don't think they're maybe... So are they stuck in the past? No, not really. But I think they're less interested in trying anything new or changing them up too much, just due to the scale and the popularity of it. Because you can imagine it would be like trying to turn an oil tanker if they tried to make a big kind of like a big innovative change within the game. I mean, they changed the size of the tables recently, and it was surprising how much even that one small thing, which doesn't change any of the rules of the game really, it was amazing how much kind of coverage that got really. So yeah, so that's my main discussion point, or one of my main discussion points tonight. I'm just kind of coming back here and having a little bit chat through some of this stuff. VJ is saying GW's rule sets tend to be much of their time. For example, 40k feels more creaky than AOS, and Warcry by comparison feels fresh. I tend to agree with you, mate, but then I'm a relatively new gamer as well, so I find when I'm looking at rule sets, some of them feel kind of creaky to me, where some of the newer ones feel more up my street. If I've been playing for 30 years, if you like, I might feel differently about it. So it's definitely an opinion thing. It's where you are in your gaming life. It's what kind of games you enjoy. But I'm never going to say Warhammer 40k is a bad game or it's a bad rule set. Like as I said before, thousands and thousands of people play that game. It might not be for me or it might not be for you, but it doesn't make it bad. It just makes it a different flavour, if you like. It's like, I don't really like banana ice cream, but I'm sure millions of others do, kind of thing. I like other flavours. Jill says GW published the greatest rule set out there, but it's Lord of the Rings, and so they don't do much with it. See, I disagree with you. I don't like Lord of the Rings. I can't get my head around it at all. So it just shows how like different people feel about different stuff. Evening, Jez. How you doing, mate? Codus is saying, I disagree that GW does not try to innovate. They make changes for the sake of change all the time to the core. They just don't update the army books accordingly. I don't think they really do make huge changes to the core itself, though. I think, like that, as I said before, that the I go, you go, the rule to wound, the kind of strength versus toughness, all of those things are basically that main game engine. The movement doesn't change. The kind of like the weapons profiles don't really change. It's like, it's this range, blah blah, rapid fire, all that kind of stuff. The core doesn't really change. What changes is the way terrain works, or the way you score objectives, or maybe they go into real fine detail with individual rules for individual weapons for individual armies, and that's what I mean about. It's kind of they change rules around the game as opposed to innovating in the game itself. Kaylee says Index 40k was great before a million stratagem appeared. Yeah, I must admit I bought in an 8th edition. I got all the indexes. I got the Dark Imperium box, and I was absolutely lost. But I hadn't even finished painting my Space Marines, and the Space Marine Codex was already out. And I must admit, I honestly felt like it was like a train hurtling down the track away from me, and I kind of just thought, I can't keep up with this. I haven't even played my first game yet, and the book I've bought is already irrelevant, kind of thing. It was it wasn't a great experience for me personally. VG saying about bloat they add but never seem to take away from their games. Yeah, I think it's all. I don't even know if it's like a kind of like a sales model really, where it's a kind of build it up. Right, we're due for a relaunch now, so let's pull some of it back and start again. I've no idea, but in fairness, I'm not that close to 40k to kind of find the fine details of that stuff. Christian sharing the link for the Patreon. Thank you very much. I've actually this stream tonight is my 1 year anniversary of doing BlackJack Legacy full time as my career, as my job now. 1 year anniversary. So yeah, if you want to help support the channel to do a second year, please do check out the Patreon. Walter saying there 40k has rules bloat that rival 7th edition. Yeah, like I say, I'm not that close to it to agree or disagree, but I do hear that a lot. Ian says GW's issue with rules has always been that it's a hobby first company rather than a games first company. I wouldn't say that was necessarily the case these days. I think they're starting to realise the rules are more important than they used to put on it. I think they're also realising that sort of change in rules quite frequently also drives sales because people buy new stuff. But I think I still want to get into this, and I would love to make like a kind of like some kind of survey or little mini documentary to try and understand exactly who, like, what's the portion or the proportion of people who play the game versus who are just like painters and law readers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it'll be really interesting. Nostock says Warcry really shows what they can do rules wise. I honestly, I think Warcry is fantastic, man. I'm a big fan of it. I think it is its beauty is its simplicity. Basically, it's what I really like. Tony Howell, you sir are an absolute legend. Thank you very much. I am assuming that's my anniversary gift, is it? Thank you very much. A little kiss would have done, man. Cheers. Thank you so much, mate. That is more than kind, more than generous. Thank you very. Oh, I'm a bit taken aback there now, mate. I've kind of lost my train of thought and lost my place. Thank you, mate. Anabolic, nice to see you in as well. Says I can't go back to GW rule sets after experiencing what other companies have to offer. I've kind of found that GW rule sets in general are not really my bag over a period of time, and that's why I want to talk about the amazing kind of rule sets that are out there. I'll never what was this one? Tiny War Games. Thank you very much, mate. Says have a super Monday. You too, sir. You too. Yeah, I'll never slate Games Workshop's games. There are some vastly kind of experienced and talented people who work very hard to make those things happen, and there are thousands of people out there who love them. They're just not really they're not my cup of tea. They're not my flavour ice cream, if you like. But yeah, that's what I want to talk about is I want to talk about all the amazing different mechanics that are out there for different games. But if I titled this video "Interesting Mechanics from Other Games," like that's not quite as interesting, is it? But as soon as you put Warhammer in a title, people want to talk about Warhammer. They want to know, and then people tune in and they kind of listen to the other stuff as well. But yeah, I was just surprised that somebody in particular thought I was going to be massively negative about it, and I was basically inviting people to be negative about them. I don't understand that, but maybe I'm kind of simplifying things a bit. Glenn says, yeah, Warcry is the best rule set since Lord of the Rings. Yeah, honestly, I tried Lord of the Rings and I really struggled with it. The rule book for the latest edition of Lord of the Rings is not written for somebody that's never played Lord of the Rings before. Where was this one? Yoakum, good evening to you, mate. He says, stop painting the house for today. Time to reload my batteries. I tell you what, much. Yeah, Stu McMurray as well. Happy anniversary. Says, thank you very much, mate. I wasn't. I'll just keep talking now, I assume. It says connected. It's back, I think, again now. I think it's just the really bad weather. We've got like proper like thunderstorms and stuff at the minute. I think it's just the real bad weather. I'll plow on with it. I'm assuming you can all hear me. Frantic saying Titanicus, players say Titanicus is the best. Yeah, I was just about to say, Yoakum, you wouldn't want to be painting the house here because it's absolutely thumping down, and I think the glitch there in the stream there proved that. VJ says the vast majority of GW gamers don't actually play their games. Well, that's going to bring down a rain of shit. I just think, I don't even think it's necessarily GW gamers. I think it's GW customers. I think the vast majority of GW's customers do not play their games. I think they buy the models, they love building them, they love painting them, they love reading the Black Library books, they love watching the streams, they love interacting on communities. I think the vast majority don't actually play the games. I don't think that's controversial to say. I think the vast majority of people in our hobby don't really play with the models that they buy, I would say. Tiberius says a consideration is that limitations of rules in I go, you go is part of what strategies you have. Yeah, I agree, mate. I think it's a design choice. I mean, it might be something that's quite controversial, that a lot of people don't necessarily like, but I think it's a deliberate design choice. And I think it can, I mean, it works in games like sort of War Machine, it works in games like Infinity. I think it's how you implement it, really. Bold and accurate statement, says VG. Andy Smith says, personal choice here, I find 40k slow and boring. It's not just for me. I've tried it many times. It's not a game for me, but I've tried other games as well that are not games for me, and I play games that I absolutely love that other people just wouldn't touch with the barge pole. So I think it's kind of, it swings and roundabouts, really. Gnostic, more likely a rain of sugar-free Haribo. Where are we here? Rob's saying, I'll say this, if I could find a decent starter for Warhammer Fantasy Battles, I'd be all over it, because I really liked it and I had a greatest time playing it. Yeah, I think complexity-wise, that was definitely a step too far for me. Jason saying Middle-earth rules were really great. I've heard, everybody tells me how great they are, mate, but honestly, I just, as I said before, it feels like they're, what's this? Tony Booth-Leiden, thank you, sir. You gent. You've all been very, very kind this evening. Everyone's saying happy anniversary, yeah. Yeah, happy anniversary. Everyone's saying 1 year. Yeah, one year of doing this full time. Who'd have thought that would happen through a pandemic as well? I never knew that when I decided to go full time. We were going to get locked down for a year. But yeah, who knew? Because I think essentially when I found out in the March that I basically had my 3 months notice, so I could leave on July the 1st. So that was officially July the 1st was my official, I don't have any other income. This is now my full-time job. So for all I was kind of on my way out from the end of March, April the 1st, that was my kind of my 3 months of notice period. Tiny War Games, I only buy, I've scrolled massively ahead there. Let me go back a little bit of some of these contents. David saying Warcry is the best rule set. I definitely think it's GW's best rule set anyway. Ian says someone needs to make more complex versions of one-page rules games. The constant rules balance flux of 40k kills me. Would like to have more stable game. I don't necessarily. I've never read the one-page rules things, to be fair, but I don't necessarily think that more complexity makes a better game. I think you can add in a lot of tactical. Like, I prefer games with quite simple rule sets, because then I'm concentrating on the tactics. I'm not concentrating every game on trying to remember the rules, and that for me creates a more tactical game. If a game is more complex, I actually just don't absorb it. So I'm concentrating on, so can I do this? Am I allowed to do that? What happens here? I'm concentrating on that rather than trying to kind of be tactical in the game itself. Wayne saying happy anniversary as well. Thank you very much. Lee now, signal is good again. Yeah, I honestly, it's proper thumping it down. The amount of rain we've had here the last couple of days, I think it's just interfering with stuff outside and stuff and signals and things. I broke in the stream. Mark says, Mark Horner, good evening, Mark. He says, recently found some game systems that almost exclusively use 3D printed models. GW was my first love, but as a gamer, I love the variety of mechanics and worlds. That's the beauty, mate. There's so much out there now that basically there is kind of there's something for everyone, really. Tiny War Games saying, I only buy GW minis but don't get the time to paint. I think that might be the case for a lot of people, mate. John saying, as you know, I really enjoy Kings of War, but I wouldn't say it's innovative. It's well written and playable, but not innovative. I think it's still about 10 years old, to be fair, mate. And that's been updated over time as well. So I think it was innovative when it first came out, in the fact that, I mean, the whole thing was on like an 8-page booklet, basically. Everything was on 8 pages, and then basically like just like the stats of the different armies. So I think it was innovative when it first came out, and then it's been basically developed into a very streamlined, well-rounded game. So they might not have innovated over the last 10 years, but I think it was an interesting kind of sort of, it was an innovative thing to do at the time, bearing in mind it was up against Warhammer Fantasy, which was basically kind of tomes and tomes of books and a massive big thick rule book, and they managed to take the essence of Warhammer Fantasy and distill it down to 8 pages. So I think that was innovative of its time. But again, I think it's another thing like Games Workshop, really. When you've got a rule set that basically, that it kind of works and people enjoy it, there's not necessarily a need to change it. So I think I go back to what I said about just because something is like stuck in the past, I don't want that to sound like a negative connotation. It's more about, is it a classic, like an old-fashioned rule set based upon older kind of design, as opposed to some kind of like fancy new sort of ideas and things. Valak says, I hope they don't do Kill Team 2.02 soon. Haven't played with most of the stuff I have yet. I think it's coming soon, mate. I think it's going to be announced this weekend, and I think it'll be here in the next few months, to be fair, mate. Nick Tompkins, hello Nick. He said, Marvel Crisis Protocol has been an amazing game. I agree, mate. I'm enjoying Marvel Crisis Protocol as well. Deep Red says, a whole year already. Time really does fly. It does a bit, mate, doesn't it? Phil Wilkinson saying, happy anniversary, pal. Thank you very much. Nick says, only issue I have with Warcry is it feels... What was that one? More corner. Thank you very much, mate. Very, very kindly. That's just sort of pinged up in the corner of my eye there. You're an absolute gent. Thank you very much. Where was it? Nick says, only issue I have with Warcry is it feels like fishing for sixes. Yeah, I do get that, but I roll them so infrequently that it's quite a nice feeling when it happens. If they had more ways to stop crazy crit craziness in Warcry than Chef's Kiss. Yeah, maybe, mate. Maybe. Right, I think what I'll do now is then we'll talk about... Am I going to clip this out? Am I not going to clip this out? I don't know. Do you know what it is? I'm going to start recording it regardless, and we'll just in case I do decide to clip something out. So what I want to discuss as well tonight really is talk about sort of innovative game or interesting game mechanics and about some of the games that I think that have them. I think there are so many sort of amazing games out there now that there is something out there for everyone. If there's a game that you don't like, if somebody says, I don't like sort of game X, somebody can say, oh, well, I'm actually, in that case, I'm sure you'll like game Y because all the things you don't like about this are kind of in that game. So there's so much choice out there now. So some of the ones I want to kind of mention, I'm going to start with Star Wars Legion by originally Fantasy Flight Games and now by Atomic Mass Games. And some of the things I think are quite innovative in these games, and I might be remembering these wrong. These might be the kind of the first games I remember having them, but it doesn't mean that they weren't in games previous to that. But it's the mechanics themselves we're focusing on. The measuring sticks, I think, is a really clever idea. So rather than kind of having tape measures across the board, the way you have kind of like short, medium, and long ranges for movement. Marvel Crisis Protocol has the same thing as well. And also the way that you move your leader model, your command model or whatever, and then everybody else moves along behind it. It's the first time I saw that in a game. It might have been used elsewhere, but it's certainly the first time I saw it. And now we're starting to see it in other games as well. So Marvel Crisis Protocol uses the measuring sticks, and Firefight sort of 2.0, the beta rules by Mantic, is using that kind of move the leader and everybody else moves alongside it. And I think they are great ways to kind of speed up squad-based games. So people are saying about kind of like, some people have kind of said all these innovative mechanic things only really work with skirmish games and small model count games. I think that's a great example right off the bat to kind of show that even in squad games you can kind of innovate. I quite like the way they do their kind of pick and ban with the deployments and the scenarios and stuff, where basically you almost have 3 cards for each of the different things that you choose, and one player decides to kind of pick one to keep, one decides to ban one or something, I forget exactly, but there's a nice way that you pick the scenario and the deployment and stuff like that. And I also really like the way they do the kind of the activation tokens. So unlike some games where it's basically I pick a model and then you pick a model, or it might be I pick a unit, you pick a unit, or it might be like sort of like for Warhammer 40k, I activate everything, you activate everything. The way Star Wars Legion does it is they have this unusual thing where basically you almost kind of like play a card at the start of the turn, and whoever has the highest number, I think it is, basically gets to sort of activate. They get to choose that many units to activate them, so they know in what order they're going to do it. The rest of your tokens, because you have a token for each unit, basically go in a bag or they go upside down and get shuffled around. So it's almost like, right, it's my turn now. I'm going to activate one unit. And it might be a blind draw, or it might be a choice of which one you activate. And that's, I might not have explained it very well, but if you look it up or you're familiar with the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. I think it's quite an interesting way to kind of take basically the known element out of activating units, if you like, and you might well have a plan, but as always in battle, plans don't always go to plan. The next one, Marvel Crisis Protocol, Atomic Mass Games. I think the way they have variable point costs for each game is something I've not seen elsewhere. So basically, you choose like a mission that you're going to play, and that mission will have a threat level attached to it. And then it's at that point, that threat level basically gives you how many points you're playing that game. And that's the point where each player picks the force that they're going to play with. So you don't know when you start which models you're going to be playing with, which I think is a really sort of interesting thing that mixes up the game. It doesn't complicate the game rules. It doesn't complicate the actual game itself. But it stops that kind of overpowered one list that always works, if you like. Deadzone is the next one. Deadzone by Mantic Games. For those not familiar, this game doesn't use any measuring sticks, any tape measures or anything at all. You basically move across a board which is 8 by 8 squares of 3-inch cubes. And basically what you can do is, if you have movement 2, you can move 2 squares across, or two cubes across, 2 cubes up. And line of sight is basically taken from the position where you put your model within that cube. It's something I've only ever seen in another Mantic game, which was Mars Attacks. I know Dust Tactics, it might have been, used to use squares as well, but I'm not as familiar with that. I think Mars Attacks might have had it first. Dreadball, another game by Mantic as well. I like the way they have a dice pool modifier. So basically what they do is, rather than modifying the stat line like a lot of games do, so if you're normally hitting on a 4+, and it might be, oh well, my opponent's toughness is this, which takes it down, I'm now hitting on 5s, if you like. It doesn't modify your stat line at all. Your stat line is always the same, and any modifiers basically either add dice to your dice pool or take dice away from your dice pool. And I just find it works so much slicker. There's less bookkeeping of trying to say, so what's the defense on yours? What does that mean? What's my attack? All this kind of thing. I find it works just really, really slick. And I also like the tug of war scoring mechanic that we see in Dreadball as well. So again, for those that don't know, if I score 3 points, it moves along the track 3 points to my side. And then if you score 4 points, it moves backwards across the track until you're basically, it goes like sort of from my 3, 2, 1, 0, and back to your 1. So you're never really out of the game. Like, even if your opponent is getting close to that kind of 7-point win, if you suddenly score 4 points, you've pulled them back to 3 up again. So you're never really out of the game. There's always a way you can kind of claw it back. So rather than trying to chase them to stop them winning, you're almost pulling them back from the victory, if you like, which I just find really interesting. Next one is Bolt Action by Warlord Games. I'm sure everyone's familiar with this one, but basically that kind of blind draw activation of having all the activation dice in a bag and basically pulling them out blind one at a time. You never know which sort of which player is going to activate next. You might activate 2 or 3 times in a row, but then your opponent can activate 2 or 3 times in a row. So it brings an element of unpredictability into the game as well. This one, my first recollection of seeing this in a game was Dystopian Wars, when it was with Spartan Games, and this was exploding dice basically. So whether it's an exploding 6 or an exploding 8 or whatever, so basically if you roll a 6, you basically get another dice to roll again, and if that's a 6, you get another dice to roll again, and you get these kind of like dice chains. It's used really well in Dreadball. If you watched my videos recently about Overdrive as well from Mantic, tomorrow you'll see the how to play or the Let's Play video for that one, where Rob and I played a full game of it. It works really well in that as well. Another one is Malifaux by Weird Games, using a deck of cards instead of using dice. I think is a really clever thing. That there's a dice have no memory. If I roll a 6 this time, it has no bearing on what I roll next time, if you like. But a deck of cards, a deck of 52 cards, or 54 if you include the 2 jokers, has a memory. If I've played a red joker, for example, There's no more red daughters in that deck. I know that I don't have any more coming up. If my opponents played lots of high cards, I know they don't have many left in their deck. And it brings in a really kind of tactical thing to a game that you don't get from dice. And also the other thing is that they do well as well is basically this kind of being able to cheat fate. It's almost like having like a little bit like I wouldn't say like the dice in Warcry, but sort of having like a sort of, it really adds to the theme of the game. There's a very Western feel to this game and a little bit of like poker to it with the cards, and having this kind of like hidden ace to kind of pull out when you need it is a really nice mechanic. The other thing in Malifaux as well is the hidden strategies. So you have strategies and schemes, or it might be hidden schemes to be fair. You have schemes and strategies which basically are how you score victory points, and one of them is known to both of you. You know what you're trying to do to achieve points. But there are also sort of, I'm sure it's, I want to say schemes, I could be wrong. I want to say strategies, sorry. You have a strategy that basically that you're trying to get, which will achieve victory points, but your opponent doesn't know what that is. And I find that kind of that hidden sort of scenario thing's quite clever as well. Next one, X-Wing by Fantasy Flight Games. Again, sort of soon now to be Atomic Mass Games as well, is that locked-in movement. So when you decide what you want to do with your ship, how you want to fly it, you kind of rotate your dial to the right place, and you flip your dial upside down and you put it down beside your ship. And then when you kind of flip them over to do your deployment, it might be that your opponent is flown right in front of you, and it means you're going to crash now, but you're committed to it. It's not a case of, oh, well, I'm going to crash, so I'm going to change what I'm doing. I find that kind of having to plan ahead really, really clever. Warcry by Games Workshop. I like the way they do the variable kind of setup at the start with the terrain, deployment, victory, and twist cards. Unfortunately, I don't think those cards don't come with a Catacombs box. They only really came originally in the original starter box. I think you can buy them separately. I'm not sure if you still can now. But I thought it was a real interesting twist. It threw up some really kind of weird games. But I thought it was just a kind of like a fun thing. I also like the initiative roll, where you basically roll over your dice and kind of your doubles and triples and quadruples and stuff to get your abilities. I think that's pretty cool too. Next one is Wild West Exodus, the way you have a deck of cards for action points, and then basically you kind of flip a card over. It might say 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, I think it is. It might say any of those. And so that will tell you how many actions a model can take. So if you get something that has 1 action point, you might want to put it on something that you weren't planning on doing something too much with. But if you flip it and it's a 5, you might, all of a sudden, I'm going to do this. I'm going to use this unit now, or I'm going to use this model, which I think is quite clever. Next one, War Machine and Hordes. They have a mechanic where basically you're using what's called Focus or Fury. Focus in War Machine, Fury in Hordes. And essentially what you do is you generate a pile of focus at the start of your turn, depending upon what models you have, and then you decide how much focus, which is essentially how many actions you want to put onto each of your models or each of your units at the start of the turn. And that's how you decide how many each you're going to do. And that's one way of kind of planning out your turn. The way Fury works in Hordes is basically you can do as many actions as you like with your kind of beasts and things. However, at the end of your turn, you need to leech back that fury from them. And if you can't leech it back, basically what will happen is your beasts will basically frenzy, and they'll start kind of hitting your own models, and they'll start doing crazy stuff. It's a really clever mechanic, and it works well. Next one is Infinity by Corvus Belli. The fact that they use D20s, you don't see D20s very often in a miniatures game, and basically you have to have a target number that you and your opponent are both rolling towards target numbers, and the idea is who gets the closest to their target number and above the opponent. It sounds more complicated than it is, but it's quite clever. And also the fact that where you activate, let's say you get 6 activation tokens for your 6 characters, you can choose to put 1 activation on each character. You can put all 6 onto 1 character and get them to run right the way across the battlefield, sniping people off as they go kind of thing. It's quite an unusual thing to be able to kind of decide who uses your actions as opposed to each model gets an action kind of thing. Also on Infinity as well is the kind of the ARO, which is the automatic reaction order. It's another game that uses the I go, you go. So I'll activate all of my models and then you activate all of yours. However, during my turn, if I kind of cross your line of sight, you can declare an automatic reaction order and you can basically kind of shoot me as I'm moving across the battlefield, which makes it feel very much like a real battle. Last few I've got here as well is Kings of War. We were saying before in the live stream that it wasn't that innovative, but I think when it came out, I think the nerve test is quite a clever thing that you don't really see very often, and it's almost a case of like you've taken a lot of damage, and then basically you get to roll to see if you either waver or on your nerve test, if you like, to whether you're waver or whether you're routed, whether you're removed from the board. And just because you've taken a lot of damage doesn't mean you'll necessarily go, and just because you haven't taken all of your damage doesn't mean you won't necessarily go. I think it's quite a clever thing that I've not really seen elsewhere. God tier I've got here as well. I just saw in the chat earlier on someone saying I wonder if God tier gets mentioned. God tier, I like the fact that there's no factions. You basically just choose whatever the hell you like. You basically pick your 3 champions and their followers, and there's no kind of fixed factions with it. We see this in other games as well, like Super Fantasy Brawl and Overdrive, but God tier is the one I remember seeing first. And the last one on my list is Moonstone by Goblin King Games. And this is the kind of the bluffing mechanic of kind of having your deck of cards and playing a card face down and saying I've played a green 2 or whatever it is, and your opponent has to decide, looking at their cards, like, well, I've got the green 2 or something, or the green 3, shall we say, and because there's only one green 3 in the deck. I've got a green 3 here, so I know they haven't got one, so they're definitely lying, kind of thing. Or if they don't have the green 3, thinking, well, it is possible they've got it, kind of thing. This bluffing mechanic, this we don't really see that in miniatures games, and I thought that was really cool. So that kind of gives you a flavour of just some of the different mechanics that's out there, what I was kind of getting at when it comes to innovative mechanics. And I think what's driven a lot of this is that, as I mentioned earlier, is that need to be a little bit different to the big players that's out there. A bit of a hook, a bit of something different that just gives a bit of extra flavour to a game that you might not see kind of elsewhere. So that was my ramble there about that kind of stuff. And I also want to say thank you very much to Robert Zunk as well, who donated there as well, but it didn't flash up because I was on the other screen, so thank you very much, mate. Nipping back through some of these things here. Kodos is saying if you really want to look into an old school system, Dirt Side 2 or Full Thrust from Ground Zero Games is a thing. Yeah, I'm not well. I don't know anything about it, mate. So I can't say it's not really for me. But not necessarily kind of old school systems. I think I tend to prefer some of these more streamlined modern ones. Nick says I hated the thought of sticks until I used sticks. I know exactly what you mean, mate. I thought they'd be dead restrictive. I thought they'd get in the way. I'm so used to using tape measures, but as soon as I started using them, especially in Star Wars Legion, it was like, why do all games not have these? This is just like, it's so much easier. I don't have to keep checking the stats to kind of like to see. There's none of this kind of you've got a bit of a bendy tape measure there, a kind of thing. It just works really, really well. Kodos says I think Saga was the first game that really only used sticks for everything. I've never played Saga and I don't know much about it, mate, to be fair. Nick saying Bolt Action called it the sack. Yeah, it's slightly different in Bolt Action. In Bolt Action, everybody's activation dice go in and you pull them out. But in Star Wars Legion, basically each unit has a different token, if you like, or it has a token based upon the type of sort of unit or model it is. And you get to choose some of them face up and some of them face down. And it's hard to describe without kind of showing you images and stuff like that. But look it up. It works really well if you're not familiar. And Nick's saying, yeah, the combat mechanism is great as well. It is that. Mountain Gremlin Games in Deadzone is life. Yeah, David A saying Deadzone always felt underrated. It definitely is. Do you know what it is? I think if GW had released that rule set, I think it would have been much more highly praised. I think, and I don't think it's unfair to say that there's some models in Deadzone that are not the nicest. I think they're older sculpts. They're kind of, some of the older plastics weren't the nicest, and I think that probably didn't do them any kind of favors in the early days. And Deadzone First Edition was very different to Deadzone Second Edition. Deadzone Second Edition got rid of all the card mechanic and stuff and replaced them with command dice. But Deadzone 2nd Edition is really, really slick game. It works really well. And I think we might have a 3rd edition coming soon if the little teaser from Mantic's live stream the other week is anything to go by. Yeah, David was saying, I wonder if God T will be mentioned. Andy says, never played Deadzone. It almost feels like a bit of a really streamlined Necromunda in the fact of like you're kind of taking small gangs and stuff like that. But it's just the fact, I mean, it plays on a 2-foot by 2-foot board, but it has a lot of height to the game. So you're moving up and down through kind of terrain and through buildings and stuff. It's just really slick the way it works with the cubes instead of having tape measures. And especially when you've got like, because it works really well with lots of terrain on the board, if you had tape measures, you'd be constantly trying to kind of like get in amongst the buildings and you can't get the tape measure in and you can't measure it. With it working with cubes, it just works like a dream. Deep Red says, I do enjoy commands and colours gameplay of card selection. It probably doesn't count as played on a board, but still a fun game though. It definitely counts me. I mean, board games, if we start going into kind of like proper board games and stuff, I think would be here all night, but I don't know the game. I'm not familiar with it, so I can't really say that much about it. Animus says, just got here, but yes, Warhammer games are still in the past and I don't want to change, and neither do most of the old fans. I think that's kind of where I got to, really. Like they are based upon an older design, but that doesn't make them bad in the slightest. Blizzard saying, Malifaux, never heard of it. Christian sharing the link for the merch there. Thank you very much, mate. And I've just got down to where Robert donated. Thank you, Rob. Really massively appreciated. Deep Red said, I've ruined me tank. I've glued on the wrong bit the wrong way around. I've been there, mate. Akima Hikaru, nice to see you in. Says Focus Frenzy is kind of similar to CP's. Command protocols, I think you mean. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of crossover. For those that are not familiar, the guys that basically run Atomic Mass Games, the designers and everybody, all used to work for Privateer Press, which is who designed War Machine and Hordes. And there's a lot of similarities between those two games, or you can certainly feel the design influences. Small says, I really like the activation system used in Armada, but only works with board games. The activation system. Oh, do you mean like with the wind coming across? Yeah, I think that's really clever as well. I should have mentioned that. I forgot all about that one. I knew I'd missed some off. Where are we to? All Points TV. Hello, Jamie. How are you doing, mate? Nice to see you. Says, does Kings of War still have set charge distances? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does, mate. And hello to you. VJ says, GW seem to really struggle with the concept of Overwatch fire. It seems to swing between OP to underpower and back each edition. I'm not. What was that one? James Bray, thank you very much, mate. Another awesome donation there. You should do a stream where you lay out your ideal game, all the mechanics, game size, and a setting you'd like, and viewers name it. Happy 1 year. Thanks very much, mate. I did something recently where I talked about all the different things I look for in a game. So I guess it would probably be like a successor to that one, really. I'm not familiar, if I'm honest, VJ, with Overwatch and stuff. I know how it works in the game, but I've not played it enough to kind of decide whether I think it's kind of overpowered or underpowered. I think it's changed this last edition, hasn't it? Now, Andy says GW best mechanic is Space Hulk. Ian says Dirt Side and Full Thrust are great. Full Thrust is top tier for space combat. Jamie saying I use sticks for AOS. I used to remember a lot of people using measurement sticks and measurement widget for things like Guild Ball and stuff, but I never really saw it much anywhere else. But there's no reason why not. Obviously, the difference with the measurement sticks for things like Marvel and for Star Wars Legion is their specific lengths with kind of like sort of a pivoting part in the middle. But yeah, I'm surprised more people don't use that kind of stuff. Andrew Fairbanks, good evening, Andrew. Says, I'd like to see a combination of the Flames of War dice draw or Rain in Hell's D12s for activation order, an initiative based on a type of model. I'm not familiar with either of those, mate, if I'm perfectly honest, but it sounds like there's some interesting mechanic in there. Where are we up to here? Akima says, I think the best GW mechanic was the activation system for War Master. It's now used in Lion, Rampant, and Hail Caesar. Yeah, I never ever played any of those three games, so I'm not familiar with that. John says, love Deadzone. Now I've got my head around it, and the new Matsudan are awesome models. The newer stuff, I'd agree, mate. I think some of the newer stuff is really nice, but definitely some of the older stuff, it kind of... One of the things that I struggled to get into Deadzone initially And you all know me. I like to kind of buy the models for the game. That's just my choice. That's what I like to do. And I think initially I wasn't really kind of convinced on any one particular faction for Deadzone. As it's grown over time and new models have come out, that's changed a bit. But I did find it was a bit of a barrier for me in the early days, if I'm perfectly honest. VG says, sitting here building Deadzone minis and having just built my terrain, hearing how great the game it is makes me very happy. Honestly, mate, it's just slick. It works really well. It's a shame that basically it just never really kind of sort of. I mean, there's a loyal kind of community for it, but it's no Necromunda, it's no 40k if you like from a popularity point of view. Andy says, so we think this Deadzone 3 coming. I certainly think there was something teased at the end of the last Mantic stream which said about Command Protocols 3. So it's either going to be Deadzone 3.0 if you like, or it's certainly going to be a new expansion or a bit of a change to the rules. But yeah, I'd welcome either of those. I think it's time to kind of give Deadzone a bit more love. Jimmy saying, not a fan of the Lion Rampant method, too punitive. I don't know what it is, mate, so I can't really comment if I'm honest. Leatherbone Games, good evening to you, mate. How are you doing? And Kodos is saying, likely to be a new version of the rule book to bring all the rules from the supplements back into one book. I'm not so sure, mate. I don't know if they would have called it like sort of Command Protocols 3. If it was just that. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know anything, so I don't know any details. Tiberius is saying, I love GW whippy sticks. I forgot about whippy sticks. God, those were the days. You get those like kind of plastic ruler things now, don't you? Jimmy saying, things for summoning distance and spell range sticks are spot on. Yeah, I can imagine, mate. I can imagine they do. Rather than trying to kind of like sort of bend and tape measures. Is that in? Can you see over the edge? Is that in or not? Tony says, I enjoy Talisman if that counts. I've never played Talisman, but I have heard of kind of most of probably a lot of games I've heard of. That one seems to have the most kind of divisive opinions of, I absolutely love it, I can't stand it, and I've never played it to know why it's got that kind of divisive thing. Small says, bolt action system uses the dice draw mechanic as well to see who will activate. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned that. I mentioned that bolt action in the stream as well. It works different to the way Star Wars Legion does, though. Star Wars Legion uses like some are known and some are unknown, if you like. I find it hard to explain it. Marcus is saying he's finally home. Wow, it's humid outside. Jamie's saying, Lion Rampant, you have to roll a 5 or a 6 to activate the unit. I do remember seeing that somewhere now. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be a huge fan of that. It feels like you could go sort of a lot of turns with nothing really happening, couldn't you? And at the end of the day, rules should never be like a negative play experience, which is why I think like it's one of the things I like about Warcry is it tends to never be a negative play experience, because you never kind of roll all these dice, get all these successes, and then your opponent rolls all these saves and you go, oh, I wasted my time there. It's like there's just a kind of like there's a much more a meaty feel to it. You're far better off giving your models lots of wounds and making them take lots of damage than you are giving them not many wounds and making them really hard to kind of do anything. It just are we having a mare again? Let me have a look. It's saying it's still there. Yeah, it's back again. I think it's just the weather, folks. I apologise. I'm going to have to. Well, I'm going to have to do something about that. I don't know if I can do a reverse rain dance and stuff, but yeah, the weather is awful. I think it's affecting some of the stuff. Manadork says, my favourite GW game is Warhammer Underworlds. Unfortunately, it feels very, very low priority for GW, if they even remember it exists. To be honest, I think they support it pretty well, but they've just got a very specific release schedule for it every season. I think the problem is they don't really talk about it much, so you don't really hear about it on their live streams. You don't really hear it much about it like on Warhammer TV. It's like they seem to as well. They seem to like sort of tease or say these are all the stuff that's coming for Warhammer Underworlds, and then it doesn't feel very exciting as the year progresses. And I think that's the negative side of it. But they certainly support it every season with more releases and things keep coming for it. But I know what you mean. It does kind of fly under the radar a bit. Peter says, evening, gents. Survived another day in the madhouse. Good evening, Peter. Netherbone says, I got the newest Blood Bowl set, painted my team and played it once, and then lockdown happened. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Blood Bowl. I think it's fair to say. I've said that a few times. So I didn't pick up the new set, but it was fantastic value. And again, it's another one of those games. Thousands of people love it. It doesn't make it a bad game because I don't like it. Jill says, off to bed now. Enjoy the rest of the stream, folks. Thank you, Jill. Take care. Lee Reynolds, hello, miss. His Blood Bowl at the time was brilliant, easy system, which still holds up today. Easy system. Would I say it was easy? I just don't find it fun, mate, if I'm perfectly honest. I just don't find it fun. I think it's one of them games that I think you need to get good to enjoy it, or you need to play against people at the same level that you are to enjoy it. Because as soon as there's any imbalance in player level, it's out the window. And then you start playing in leagues and people start running away with like extra kind of like sort of what they called like power up type stuff, if you like. I think it just becomes quite unbalanced. Where was this one? Rob saying, now I want to play Warcry. Marcus says, okay, something I really miss, all the random tables that the orcs used in 40k. I know it could slow the game down, but they were so hilarious. I think there's a balance in that. I mean, I think random encounter tables and random roll tables can be really fun in a very narrative kind of thematic game. But I think if you're playing something which is based more upon sort of tactics, if you like, because the game is quite tactical, and I think if you throw too much randomness into just one army, for example, it can really skew a game a little bit. So I think there's a place for random rules. Jamie saying the cave is flooding. I know, honestly, it is absolute. I can hear it bouncing. It's really coming down. Koda says it was a Containment Protocol 3.0 in the teaser, so just a guess, but I'm not thinking there'll be something new. I guess we find out soon, mate. My guess is there's going to be like a 3.0, like a new version or a new box set or something like that. That would be my guess, but it's a pure guess based upon no knowledge, if I'm honest. Jason says, I'm on the Talisman Love Train. Honestly, I think that's the game I've heard the most, like, love it, hate it for. And I don't know, like I say, I've not played it, so I don't know why. Marcus says, I could play Warhammer Underworld, but I do get some of them. I could play Warhammer World, but I do get some of the models they make, awesome additions to my Warcry teams. I quite liked Underworlds when it first came out. But it very quickly became a card game, and I'm not a huge player of card games, really. Chasing certain cards and buying boxes to get certain cards and certain builds were the build to have kind of thing. I like it as a kind of almost as a board game, as a casual play experience, and certainly with the later releases from Beastgrave and through into, I can't remember what the latest one's called now, where if you buy a team you get almost a pre-built deck in that box. That certainly made it a bit more accessible for casual players, I think. Walter Black says, of all the game systems GW has, Blood Bowl is the one most stuck in the past. Hardly any changes or the fan base riots. Yeah, I think it's kind of what I mentioned before, really. I think it's, it stood the test of time. The fact that kind of like the Blood Bowl community basically took that game and kept it going and really kept it quite popular, to be fair. I think if Games Workshop had tried to change anything, I think there would have been blood loss, I think. So I do get why they had to basically kind of keep that the best as they could. Rob says, Mrs. Z says, hi Andy. Hello, Mrs. Z. How are you doing? I hope the garden's coming along nice. Where are we up to here? VG says, Underworlds is plenty supported, a lot more than other GW games. Yeah, they're very upfront with the release schedule. Yeah, I definitely don't feel like it basically gets like... It doesn't get any hype, and it doesn't really get a lot of chatter about it, and they seem to announce things really, really early up front rather than kind of keep it a bit secretive. And I think just keeping quiet about it would help sometimes. Dreadfleet. No, I didn't mention Dreadfleet, mate. Mark's favourite activation system is from a war game called For What Remains by David Thompson. It uses a mix of legions and bolt actions. Ah, interesting. Andy Smith says, Star Saga, any good? I think it's probably, mate, it's probably the only Mantic game. Let me just... my TV said it's going to turn itself off here if I don't press an OK button. And that's where I'm monitoring all the stream stuff. It's probably the only Mantic game I've never played, mate, if I'm honest. But I've heard good stuff about it, but I can't tell you from personal experience. Jamie says Blood Bowl 2 punishing essentially punishes you for rolling the dice. That's what I mean about it, and it goes back to what I was saying before, mate, as well, about negative play experience, where I feel like it's kind of, as opposed to me being able to do something, quite often it stops me doing something, and that to me just feels like I feel like I might as well be flipping a coin. It stops becoming kind of enjoyable, if you like, and it's a game loads of people enjoy. It's not my flavour of ice cream. Man of Dog says, otherwise I'm super into God tier and really all the Super Fantasy or SFG or Steamforged games. I was thinking Super Fantasy Brawl there. Steamforged games. They really have stepped up their game. God tier and Epic Encounters are incredible. I think, to be fair, mate, I think Steamforged have completely changed what their direction is. They're more of a board game RPG company now. I think obviously there was a lot of fallout around Guild Ball and stuff. I'm kind of neither for or against any of that stuff. I didn't play Guild Ball, so it didn't affect me personally. But I can understand why people were upset about it. But I think as a company they've just pivoted, and I think it feels like they've found a groove of what's sustainable financially for them, what works for them, and maybe where their niche is really. And they've been producing some good stuff. I think it took them a little while to kind of find the groove, though, to be fair. Leatherborn says, I agree with that. Blood Bowl is fairly unbalanced at times. Yeah, I've played against Dark Elves and definitely had been sort of felt wanting. John says, come on, 94 in and 51 likes. Come on, we can get 50. We got 55 likes. Come on, we can push it a little bit. Small says, my yearly vacation is coming up soon, so I think I'm going to put the core box for Warcry together. All that plastic. If you've got the original core box made, please watch my video on how to build it, because the instructions, you build it how you want. However, if you want to use the cards that come in the box, watch the video that I made. Otherwise, you'll end up following the instructions and going, oh well, I can't do it now. Frantic says, Underworlds hasn't received a FAQ for over a year now for a so-called competitive game that wants to have things balanced. That's a lot of time. I think the problem is, mate, nobody's been playing it for a year. Nobody's been playing it competitively for a year, and I think that's the problem. There's not enough games being played under tournament conditions to generate an FAQ, I think. And I think that, so we have to kind of cut them a little bit of slack for that kind of stuff, I think. Where was this one? Machine Gun Devil Dog. What a name that is. Says, lack of opponents. What are some good solo tabletop games? So some solo tabletop games I would recommend. Walking Dead by Mantic Games. Walking Dead All Out War. You can play that solo. It works really well. You can also play it cooperative as well, and you can play it kind of player versus player. Core Space by Battle Systems. If you like Necromunda, if you like that kind of sort of smugglers in space trying to go aboard a ship and steal some stuff and get out again with your stuff, you can play that solo as well. There's AI mechanics for the enemies. I would also say Fallout by Modiphius. Not played it, so can't recommend it on that basis, but you can play it solo. And also, what's it called? Call to Arms, which is the Elder Scrolls game, the Skyrim game, again by Modiphius. You can play a solo as well. What else can you play a solo? Rangers of Shadow Deep, another miniatures game that you can play a solo, by Joseph McCulloch, who also did the Frostgrave games. I think what else I've got. Is there anything else? I'm looking on my shelf now to see if there's anything you can play kind of solo as well. Also start to look at some board games as well. There's quite a lot of like kind of board games with really nice miniatures that you can play solo. So the reason I say that is I'm looking on my shelf here. I've got like Hellboy, the board game. What else have I got here? Or Gears of War, but you can't. I don't think you can buy that anymore now. And I've also got Resident Evil 2 as well, that I can see from here. So those are probably some to look at. And also another board game as well is Here's Negan, again by Mantic, based upon the Walking Dead stuff. You can play all of those games solo. Jess says, I buy occasional Underworld's minis cards but never look at the cards. Andrew Cook says, GW did innovate Blood Bowl when they created Blitz Bowl. That's because GW didn't create it. That's why it innovated. Somebody wrote it for them. Yeah. Paul Case says Blitzball is fantastic. It's a real shame it's not sold in the UK. I agree. Me and VG have played many games of Blitzball on their Tabletop Simulator, and I'm very lucky enough as well that one of my awesome Patreons managed to get me one sent over from America as well. So I do have Blitzball here at home. Kevin Mohammed, good morning. Kevin says good morning from Japan. Is it Kanishiwa? Is that right? Is that the right one? Says, glad to be able to catch your live stream again, Andy. Thank you very much. Andrew Fairbanks says, Blood Bowl is a game about risk management. You do the easy stuff first, then get risky. Yeah, but I think it's quite punishing in the fact that that's something you learn over a lot of games. And that doesn't come naturally, I think. Where I've played Blitzball and it never feels like that. Blitzball never feels like that. Because basically you have like 3 activations. I think it's 3 actions or 3 activations, and you can just kind of do what you want to do. Brandon Rutter, hello Brandon, how are you doing? See, I'm interested to see what they do with Bladeborn. Looks like Warcry Underworld's hybrid, but mainly to see how they tweak the Warcry award band cards. Bladeborn. I don't even think I've heard the name yet. I don't know what that is. Paul K is the winner. Peter says, anyone mentioned the Osprey Dragon Rampant, Lion Rampant? Yes, somebody's mentioned that already, mate. But as Jamie mentioned, I'd forgotten about that activation mechanic where you kind of have to roll a 5 or a 6 to see if you actually do anything. I'm not sure that's that fun for me. VG says Blitzball is probably the best rule system in a tabletop board-based game. Would I agree? Would I disagree? I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm not sure. I'd have to really think about it if I think there's anything else that I think is like sort of slicker or better. There's some really good games out there these days, but I wouldn't disagree that it's awesome. Small off the bed, good night. Kaylee saying Rangers of Shadow Deep is great solo, yeah. Tony saying Mansions of Madness for solo. I've never played Mansions of Madness, mate. Robert Zung saying Aliens. I didn't realise Aliens was solo, mate. I completely forgot about that one. Yeah, Aliens, Another Glorious Day in the Core is a great shout. Kodos is saying for innovative rules, anything or everything from Sam Mustafa. He really tries to catch the flair of historical time frame. I'm not familiar with these rules, mate, and I'm not that familiar with historical games, if I'm honest. Stargrave, completely forgot about Stargrave, mate. I forgot that was solo. And Machine Gun Devil Dog, saying, I love that name, by the way. Thanks for the recommendations. Cursed City solo. Oh, wait. Yeah, let's not go there. Christian sharing a link there for that Amazon as well. Thank you very much. If you are shopping on Amazon and you're in the UK, if you shop through my link, you basically pay the same price, you get the same delivery, but I make a small commission for sending you that way. And if you're thinking about taking up like a free Audible a free Audible trial or anything like that as well, if you have a look through, I think it's in the descriptions of my videos. There's a link there as well, which doesn't cost you a penny. You get your 3 months trial, and again, I make a small commission. All these little things is basically what keeps me going full time. Mark says 5 parsecs from home. Yeah, I've not played that, mate, but I am aware of it. Peter says Here's Negan's a great game if you like a Walking Dead. Yeah. Hostage Negotiator says Jimmy. I've got that as well, mate. It's actually in the house. I've got a lot of my board games are in the house that me and my wife play. Yeah, I love Hostage Negotiator. It's only solo, but we sometimes kind of play it co-op. VG says, speaking of which, with lockdown over here back, would you have time for a Blitzball game this weekend? I'm not sure, mate, because lockdown here is kind of been eased a lot now. Let me double check, mate, because a lot of it might depend on whether England's in the final or not, whether I'm kind of available and stuff. I might be up late and stuff. Tony says Dungeon Saga and Star Saga both solo. Fiji says Blitzball feels like awesome. Rob is saying also check out 2 Hour War Games. Their rule set can be played solo or same side. Yeah, I quite like the co-op stuff. Jason says, anybody familiar with the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness rulebook? I assume you mean Horus Heresy. I'm not, mate. Christian says any of the Dungeons and Dragons board games are good solo. Legend of Drizzt, Castle Ravenloft, and Wrath of Ashardlon. Put my teeth back in there. Ariel Sanchez, Bladeborn is one of those upcoming Barnes and Noble style box games. Do you know what it is? It felt like I'd kind of heard of it, but I wasn't sure what it was. So while we're talking about Games Workshop stuff, I have heard a rumour that Kill Team 2 is coming, and it's coming very soon. I've also heard that they've tried to incorporate the kind of the Warcry model into it. I think they're going to try and start to explore some of the kind of like lesser known races, if you like. We might start to see some kind of, maybe some Necromunda kind of type crew crossing over into it. Maybe some of the kind of sort of specialist little armies and things. And we'll see these released as boxes in the way that we would see like a 1,000-point box for Warcry. I've heard on the grapevine from a bit of an insider that's what's happening. So stay tuned for that. If that does happen, you heard it here first. Yeah, Andrew saying Bladeborn was announced by GW on the 3rd of Feb. Yeah, my old brain's not that new, mate. Not that fresh. VG saying, yeah, we'll check you after the game. Yeah, definitely, mate. We'll check. I'd love to have a game, mate. If I can make it work, I'll make it work. Andrew Fairbank says you can play Warhammer Quest Curse City solo. Yeah, get the words back in the can. Squats. And Anonymous is saying, let those kill team rumors be true. Yeah, they've come from somebody who knows, if you like. So I tend to take them with quite a bit of clout. So yeah, I think that's certainly what I think is happening. Let me get a drink here because my throat's drying out. So apologies if I just go radio silent there for a second. My throat's drying out a little bit. Let me just get my water up here. So yeah, that's my kind of little bit of sneaky information. Hopefully that comes true, because to be honest, it's what I wish. I think they'll need to keep a lot of the kind of 40k feel of the game. So I don't think it's going to change hugely, and I wouldn't necessarily. I think players who love Kill Team would be really annoyed if the rules changed dramatically. But I think they've learned a lot from Warcry that I think they'll incorporate into Kill Team 2.0. Andrew says I had to Google it, mate. Everyone's a genius when they've got Google, aren't they? So yeah. So we're coming up to kind of, what is it, 20 past 10 now. Well, I'll chat on for as long as you guys still want to chat on. There's 80 of you in the chat at the moment, so I'm happy to keep going. Let me know if there's anything you want to chat about. Is there any topics you want to talk about? Is there any questions you want to ask about stuff? For those of you that saw last week's Overdrive video that I filmed with Rob Berman, we did the video that you saw, and then we went straight on afterwards and played through a full game of Overdrive. And unfortunately, that just made the video way too long. So when I come to edit it, I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop it down into a kind of like a how to play, which is what you saw, and then a kind of like a let's play, like a full gameplay thing. So that's all edited. That's kind of it's up on YouTube. That'll be going up tomorrow night at 7 p.m. UK time. So if you're interested in Overdrive by Mantic, there's a full play. I think it's the first full playthrough video that anybody will have seen. So that will be up for you all to see tomorrow if you'd like to take that in. Wednesday night's live stream for the painting folks. I'm sure those of you who've been following the Euro Championships, the football, will know that England have quite an important semi-final game on Wednesday. So I'm not live streaming on Wednesday. There'll be no live stream this week. I'll be watching the football. So yeah, apologies for that and missing that one. But yeah, it's unlikely to happen again in my lifetime, so I'm going to make the most and watch it. Jess is saying Plastic Death Corps of Krieg. I must admit, mate, that's exactly what went through my head as well. I love those Death Corps of Krieg models. And if they had not been Forge World models, I probably would have bought a few to paint up. So it would be nice to see them make an appearance in Kill Team. I think we're going to see the new Orcs. I think we might see some of those in the new Kill Team box. So I think that might be interesting. Koros is saying, getting late again. Good night, everyone. Good night, Koros. Thank you very much for coming in. Slippy Tiger says, what did I miss? Quite a bit of the stream, Slippy Tiger, but I'm sure you'll be able to catch up with it later on. Andrew saying, England bringing it home. Fingers crossed, mate. Mark Horniff says, will we see more Warcry? Yeah, I think so, mate. I think so. I've obviously got a lot of my Warcry stuff all painted up. I love the game. We're starting to get to a point now where obviously like things are getting much more relaxed now, and we can start to get. I can get people here to start filming. You'll have seen from like my recent video as well with the Overdrive one. Obviously, all the cameras and everything's working and everything's set up for the studio and stuff, so we can get some proper battle report kind of gameplay videos done. That was actually the first time I'd really kind of tested it for a full. I've obviously played around with it to see if it works and stuff, but it's the first time I've kind of tested it in anger really and did a full gameplay with it. and it seemed to work all right. There's lots of stuff I'd like to improve on, but I think for a first shot, it wasn't too bad. So yeah, I don't see why not, mate. I think we'll certainly see more Warcry stuff. It's just purely the lockdown stuff stopped me getting games in, really. So I'm just starting to kind of sort of get warmed up again now. Let's have a look here. John says 2 videos is even better value. Looking forward to it. You are welcome, mate. Kevin says one thing Kill Team 2 can learn from Warcry is by releasing the cards for the model faction rules. That helps new people playing, in my opinion. Yeah, I've said this many times. I like having the cards for models in front of me when I'm playing. It would be nice to see that. I think to be fair to Kill Team, I think it was one thing I really do like about Kill Team was the fact that everything was kept in that original rule book. Unfortunately, when the what was it called again? Pariah Nexus box released, there was some stuff in there for the newer Necrons and Space Marines, which unfortunately wasn't available anywhere else, which I thought was stunk a little bit. I didn't think that was great, but yeah, it'd be nice to see card packs, I think, or certainly cards. Glenn says, do you know when the new Halfling army is out for Kings of War? It's coming out July, mate. I think it's out this month, I believe. Andrew says, live stream the game. I think I might get closed down, mate, if I do. Tasty Brain Drain says, actually, I do have a question. I watched your video on where to start with Wild West Exodus, and I was wondering what is the point cost for a standard game? Oh, now you're asking, mate. I can't remember. It's so long since I've played now because of the lockdown stuff. I'm sure somebody in the chat will know, but I can't remember, mate. Jamie says, are you qualified to watch high-level football? Do you know what it is, Jamie? That the Euros have been the only football I must have watched in probably 3 years. I've not really watched any football at all, mate, really. I've kind of... NFL, obviously, is more my sport. But yeah, you got to watch the big tournaments. I quite like watching the big tournaments. Frantic says there were also rumours of a Horus Heresy starter box. I've heard those rumours as well, mate. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if GW can make a few more quid. I'm sure that they'll be looking at it. Beauty says, watch a long live stream. I'm going to the pub, mate. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm not just sitting here watching it. My twin sons, I'm going to be picking them up on Wednesday afternoon. They're coming over here, and then it's a local pub. I've got a table booked to sit and watch the match in the pub on Wednesday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, mate. I'm looking forward to it. The three of us went together to watch the game last Tuesday, the Germany game. And it was just nice, like my oldest lads are 18 now, they're 19 in November. And because of the lockdown, we never really got to celebrate like their birthday. Like we never got to take them to a pub or anything like that. So it's the first time we've really kind of had we've been for drinks and stuff. Like recently when you had to sit outside of a pub, you could sit outside. We went once kind of like Saturday afternoon and sat outside and had some drinks and stuff. But it's the first time I've really kind of sat in a pub with them on an evening. And we got some food, like we got like a pub meal and stuff like that. And we had a few pints and we watched the football together. It was just really nice, just like kind of hanging out with my sons. So one of my sons works on a weekend, so we couldn't get together to watch the game on Saturday. But yeah, he texted me straight away on Saturday night and said, "Get that table booked for Wednesday. We'll go again." So yeah, so the three of us are going to watch the England game again. So it's just nice to spend some time with my sons. I think it's just like it means my little one's in bed at home here. If we were shouting and cheering when the game's on, it's going to wake him up. So we might as well go and sit in the pub, have a few beers, and spend some time together. Andrew says it's going to be Kill Team Pariah all over again. I do hope not, mate. I do hope not. Slippy Tiger says, what's a good skirmish, slightly larger than skirmish fantasy game I can use all GW dwarf models they no longer do rules for? Oh, quite a few of them, mate. So you could definitely use them for Rangers of Shadow Deep. You could use them for Vanguard, which is by Mantic Games. It's like a skirmish version of Kings of War. You could use them for Dragon Rampant, which I think is the fantasy version. Is it Dragon Rampant or Lion Rampant? Yeah, Dragon Rampant, I think, is the fantasy version. You could use it for... what else? I'm sure loads of people will tell you in the chat, but those are the ones that spring to mind anyway. Andrew says, the name of the new Kill Team box has the same name as the next Flashpoint series in White Dwarf, sort of like Pariah Nexus did. Well, I wonder if this is not Kill Team 2 then, if this is going to be like another expansion box. However, Kill Team 2 is coming. It is coming. Peter says he's getting his second jab on Wednesday, so I can take a rest then. Yeah. Stacey Bridges says it wouldn't be the first time that someone live streamed themselves watching a sporting match. I'm sure the vast majority of you who want to see the game wouldn't come to my stream anyway. You'd be watching it. And those of you that would come to my stream are not the slightest bit interested in the football. So it's kind of like, it would definitely be the worst of the situations to live stream and watch the football at the same time. Ariel saying, Overdrive is slowly growing up on me. The art fooled me into believing it was a game aimed at younger players, but the rules look fast and solid. The game is solid, mate. I really enjoyed the game I played with Rob. I'm sure it'll come across on camera tomorrow. I edited the full thing again yesterday just to kind of pull it together and put a few bits of animations and stuff and some overlays on and things. And I kind of like watching it back again. It was like, it kind of confirmed that. I think it comes across on the game that we're both having a good time playing it as well. It was a lot of fun. Brandon says, just do a Demon World Kill Team version of Warcry. Yeah. Do you know what it is? They just need to set it in the right place, don't they? I think rather than it would be nice. I mean, what Kill Team has done, and the same thing happened for Warcry, is it was a way to get a lot of terrain into people's hands as well. I just think I like the fact with Warcry, sorry, you can get those kind of like a Warcry a band in a box, if you like. And I'd like to see that for Kill Team. I think it would be a great way to expand out 40k into bringing in some of those kind of sort of ragtag little units that you might use into different things. Things like those kind of Death Court of Krieg and things like that. James is my son, 3.5, keeps wanting to look at my models. I think I'll be coming up with snakes and ladders level rules for them soon. I've played quite a bit with my son. My son's 4, he's 5 in September. And through lockdown last year, we played quite a lot of stuff. So I've got my old Mars Attacks game out. Single piece plastic models, bits of plastic terrain. Works on cubes as well, so there's no measuring and stuff. And we were just basically making rules as I went along. I was basically like, it became a bit of a maths thing, a bit like home tutoring type thing. So I was saying, right, this model's got like 5 shots, so count 5 dice. And you need 3 or more to kind of hit them. So he was rolling the dice, and I was saying, right, tell me how many of those dice have got 3 or more on it. So we're kind of just doing stuff like that, and we basically flicking them off the board if he killed them, kind of thing. So it was quite nice to play something together. He's definitely interested. He loves rolling dice. He loves the models. He's painted some models and stuff. Obviously, just like slapping things on with paint and stuff. But he's really interested in them. So hopefully, you kind of turn him into a little gamer in the future. Walter Black says 1200 is a Wild West Exodus tournament standard. Thank you, Walter. I had 1,000 points in my head, but I must admit it's been a long time since I played, so I've kind of forgot. Marcus says, I swear if Death Corps Kree make it a GW plastic box, my friend would lose his mind. I'll just scroll through. John says, I thought Salamanders were released this month, halflings into early autumn. I remember seeing July on the slides, and that's why I was thinking. That's why I thought it was July. Salamanders are July. They've just come out of that. Oh no, they've gone up for pre-order, haven't they? Have I still got the? Have I deleted the presentation thing, or have I still got it here? Let's have a look. Have I got it, or have I ditched it? I'll tell you what. I might still have it tucked away somewhere. I can keep looking while we're chatting. It'll be in my downloads file. There it is. Presentation. I can see it now. Right, I've got the presentation that Mantic did. So, halflings are summer. Yeah, it was Salamanders were July. That's what it was. Salamanders were July. Summer was halflings, and then winter was the top secret thing. So I haven't got a specific date, but we know it'll be coming. I would imagine if we're talking, we must be talking August, September. Once you get, it says summer. Once you get into September, you're almost into autumn, aren't you? So I would imagine it's going to be kind of like August sometime or something. Andrew was saying, Andrew Fairbanks, that was, just disappeared off my top of my screen. To be fair, nobody watched sports in like a year. Rumour has it Liverpool won the Premier League and nobody saw it. Yeah, that was the weirdest thing ever, mate, wasn't it? Tiberius says, take the wee man to the pub, get him a couple of pints, start them early. It's his bedtime, mate. He did sit and watch some of the England game with me on Saturday, and he was loving that. I think he just liked the idea of kind of like cheering along together and stuff. And in nursery, where he goes to, each of the different classes in that school got like a team in the sweepstake, and I think they're going to basically get some sweets if their team wins. And his class have got England, so he's obviously like sort of doubly excited that if England win, he's going to get some sweets at nursery. VJ saying the Forge Father minis are fiddly. Yeah, they are a little bit, mate. Just saying, take a look at Oathmark and Saga Age of Legends 2. Yeah, for the dwarf games we're talking about. Peter says for a free big skirmish game using Warhammer models, check out Age of Fantasy from one-page rules. WM says, question, what skirmish game would you recommend for 2 wargaming beginners? Me and my 14-year-old son, we both like tactical games, but we also like fast action and destruction. Are you more into fantasy, modern day, sci-fi? Have you got a preference that might help me guide you in a particular direction? Peter says, he's having a chat with Deep Red there. Ian says, is there a good source for reading up on, exploring various mechanics that tabletop wargames have used in the past? Not really, mate. A lot of it is just through things like this, like basically just people who've got memories who remember stupid stuff. Andrew says, I had to watch a live stream commentary when the Black Caps won the Cricket World Championships. It wasn't on free to air, not even on the radio. Wow. Well, in the UK, the big tournaments like the World Cup and the European Championships and the FA Cup when it comes to football are all on free to air stuff, so they're on either BBC or ITV, which are like terrestrial free channels in the UK. So yeah, it's these ones. Everybody has access to them. If you have a TV, you have access to them. Peter says he played the Grimdark Future rules. He loves them. Animus says Kill Team and Warcry needs bands of original minis, just like Underworlds. Yeah, and Warcry has them as well, to be fair, and that's what I like about Warcry. Deep Red says, I'm going to have a game at Elemental before next Monday's live stream. Let you know how I get on. I don't think I know what Elemental is, mate. John says, going back to your original question, I've always thought historicals were stuck in the past. Dad jokes now. Peter says, is it really ever summer there? Ouch. We're having a nice summer. Apart from the rain at the moment, we've obviously got like a really sort of a terrible kind of patch of rain coming over us the last few days with some flooding and stuff. But recently it's been beautiful, mate, and it's planned to be nice a little bit later as well, so fingers crossed. How much is a Duckworth? Says, did I just miss the football chat? It was very, very briefly, mate. We were just kind of basically talking about no live stream on Wednesday because I'm watching the game. WM says, follow question. We actually like all settings. Oh, okay, mate. So, skirmish game for beginners. Warcry, I find, is a great one. I think the starter box, unfortunately, the best starter box is no longer available. The Catacombs box is a little bit expensive if you're just starting out, if I'm perfectly honest. Although the game itself is really good value. If you really just want to dip your toe in with something, Walking Dead All Out War by Mantic. Really, really sort of clear rule set. You can play it solo, you can play it sort of co-op together against the AI of the walkers, or you can play it player versus player with the walkers almost being like dangerous terrain getting in the way and attacking you and stuff. I always recommend that one. Other skirmish games, I'm kind of looking around now because I always kind of I've made a few videos that I would recommend you kind of watch because they might give you some more. So if you search for best miniature games for beginners, you'll probably get the 3 videos that I've made about it, and I tend to kind of give like 5 recommendations, and I've done them over the last 3 years. So there's a number of different games in there. I would definitely recommend different things, and they might give you a flavour. So for example, if you like kind of like World War II kind of air combat, Blood Red Skies by Warlord Games is a nice little intro game. I think even things like X-Wing is a great sort of like low entry point game. I think Marvel Crisis Protocol, for all the miniatures, are a little bit fiddly to build if you're quite new to that kind of stuff, and you need to look for it at good value because I think it's like £100 for the starter box, but you can pick it up for like 65. I think that's a great kind of skirmish game if you just want to sort of dip your toe in and try a few things. Where are we up to here? It's coming home. Lazy Bum says, is Malifaux 3rd edition newbie friendly? It depends, mate. The rules themselves are not difficult. There's a lot of tactical depth in like synergies between models and kind of rule interactions on the cards and stuff. but it depends what you mean by newbie. If you've never played a war game before, if you've never played a miniatures game before, I wouldn't suggest Malifaux is the first one that you kind of try your hand at. But if you know enough that you know the basics of how miniatures games work, like sort of how movement works, line of sight, kind of sort of terrain, heights, that type of stuff. If you know the basics, then yeah, by all means. The problem with it is there isn't a starter box. So the best thing you can do is go on the Malifaux website. The 3rd edition rules are free. All of the cards, like the model stats cards, are free. Download the bits that you need. There's a really good free app that Malifaux do, which is like an army builder thing and has all the rules on there as well. Get all the free stuff and read through it and then decide. Because I think it's not the easiest game to learn, but it's not as difficult as it first appears. Iron Sea Vanguard. Vanguard's not a bad sort of starter skirmish game. For me, though, I actually find Kings of War easier to learn than Vanguard. I think there's quite a few moving parts in Vanguard, and so for all it's still relatively simple. I'm not sure if I would recommend it as the first game. And another reason I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as a first skirmish game is because Mantic don't have kind of like a lot of instructions for building the models and stuff. So if you're just starting out, some of the stuff that you, even before you've even got to play in the game, I find some of them things are quite off-putting. Once you're a bit more seasoned, you're a bit more of a seasoned hobbyist, you know what you're doing, then I find it's easier to kind of get into at that point. But if there's no build instructions, I find sometimes that you almost get frustrated before you've even started playing. WMC has got you. Thanks, buddy. Is Gaslands good for beginners rules? Absolutely, mate. Gaslands is great because the rule set's cheap. You just use miniature toy cars and you're away and playing, mate. I think Gaslands was one of the ones I recommended in one of my beginner videos. Lazy Pirate Painting says Deadzone. Again, mate, I put Deadzone in there with Vanguard for the same reason. If Mantic had better build instructions with the starter boxes for those games, I would recommend them as good beginner games. But I sometimes don't feel like Mantic stuff is aimed at complete beginners. It's almost aimed at people who've been hobbyists in the past and are looking for a kind of like a route back in, or maybe they're people that kind of looking for a less expensive kind of entry into games. I find all of the games I've played by Mantic have all been great, and I love them. And I think they make some great minis now. Some of the older ones less so. But I find the lack of build instructions massively frustrating, if I'm perfectly honest. Regis saying, sitting here building these Forge Fathers, I'm really frustrated with Mantic's lack of build instructions. Yes, mate. Blizzard says, anyone know if you can play Gaslands with 1/48th scale models? You can play them with any scale you want, mate. I think the rules don't really change. Obviously, the size of your board might, but I think it even tells you in the back of the book about what size templates and stuff, and how, like, if you're going to photocopy them or print them off, how to scale them up or scale them down for different sizes. I'm sure it does. Animus is saying, wow, Warcry really is the easiest skirmish there is. I think it's one of the easiest, mate, if I'm perfectly honest. It's not difficult at all. It's very, very streamlined. The problem being is it's quite a big outlay to get started, because unless you're going to buy the Catacombs box, which has some terrain and boards and a couple of things in, you're still spending like £125 on that. You have to buy the rule book. You've got to have 2 warbands. You obviously need stuff to play on, but if you've got stuff to play on and stuff, a couple of warbands is not expensive. So, and then buying the rule book. But I guess even if you buy the rule book and 2 warbands, you're probably still spending 90 quid. So that's the only thing. It's GW stuff, so it's a bit more pricey. It's a bit more expensive to get into. There's plenty of starter sets out there for other games that can get you in from maybe about 40 to 60, 70 pound with a load of stuff as well. John says, I think as a game, Deadzone is easier to grasp the gameplay than Vanguard. Yeah, I'd agree, mate, as well. I would completely agree. The only reason I wouldn't necessarily recommend them to complete beginners, and I mean people who've like this is their first miniatures game, is I honestly think building some of the models would put people off before they get started sometimes, because a lot of those starter boxes that they do have some of the older sculpts in them, which are the more frustrating ones to build. If you're starting with Vanguard, for example, I think the Vanguard, is there a Vanguard starter box? I think there is. I think it has like Night Stalkers and Northern Alliance in, which are like the newer stuff. I think it's less frustrating. Peter says, Mantic should really use the one-part models for Star Saga in the next core box for Deadzone. That would be great for beginners. I think a lot of starter boxes should go with one-part models, if I'm perfectly honest. But then I'm somebody who thinks starter boxes should be an easy access, straight in, sort of getting people into the game as quickly as possible, getting them out of the box, getting them on the table, playing the game straight away. That's kind of how I think starter boxes should be. Lazy Bum says, I've seen an interesting skirmish World War II game called 148 Tactic. I've heard of it, mate, but I don't know anything about it, if I'm honest. Visual saying, yeah, Steel Warriors from the starter set. Yeah, which ones in particular? Yeah, they need a little bit of cleaning up and stuff. How are we doing for time? 1:45, 60 viewers. That's not too bad. I think we'll start to wrap it up there, to be fair, because my throat's drying out a little bit now. And I've got to be up early in the morning. So, and Blizzard's saying there, new Malifaux faction starters have pre-assembled minis. Exactly, mate. Yeah, I am 100% behind that move. So, I think what we'll do is we'll call that a night there. Thank you, every single one of you that have been in tonight. Thank you, everybody that donated as well tonight. I'm blown away by your generosity. My 1 year anniversary of doing this full time on YouTube. Like this is my job. This is what I do. I get to live the dream, as people would say. And yeah, today's stream is my 1 year anniversary of doing that full time. So yeah, thank you very, very much, everybody. If this is the first time you've kind of seen my stuff, please do consider clicking the subscribe button. If you've been coming here for a regular time now and you're enjoying it, please do consider checking out the Patreon. That's how I kind of pay the bills and keep the lights on. I don't do any paid advertising by companies. I don't kind of I don't get people to pay me to review their products or anything like that, like certain other channels do. So it means I can be completely independent and say exactly what I want. I'm not saying nice things to make sure I get paid every month, kind of thing. So yeah, take a look at the Patreon. $2 a month is basically where you can buy in for that, and basically gets you free access to our Patreon Discord group, and it helps me keep the lights on and helps me pay the bills. So thank you very much, folks. Again, as I said before, there's no live stream on Wednesday because I'm watching the football. There will be a video tomorrow, so check out tomorrow's video. And I will see you in person next Monday on next week's live stream. So take care. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.